Welcome back to another book highlight. And for this one, I'm going to combine chapters 3 and 4 of My Father the King because I think they are very well connected. Chapter 3 is the beginning of Mephi's sort of connection with David being established. It starts with him dreaming about his father's last words to him, and he's not really quite sure if they're real or if he imagined them or sort of built them up in his head. But Jonathan told him, when Yahweh is with you, your arrows will fly on the wings of the wind. And Mephi is dreaming about that, and he sees David, doesn't really know that it's him, but he sees King David in his dream. And so I think it was a good time in the very next chapter to sort of introduce David's perspective to the story, because books 1 and 2 went back and forth between Jonathan and David's perspectives. And this one, My Father the King, is more primarily Mephi's story, but I knew that David's voice still had to be present, and so it's not evenly back and forth with the chapters, but David definitely has a lot of chapters and does a lot of talking. And so I felt this was a good opportunity, a good moment to introduce the fact that David is talking now and where he is in his story. And at first glance, it might seem that they're kind of strangely put together. Chapter 4 is, this confusing dream that Mephi has, and then he wakes up to this chaotic circumstance with what they think is the Amalekites attacking, and then he ends up getting kidnapped, and he's not really sure why. It was a setup, but he's not really sure what they want him for. So it's a very upsetting and chaotic moment for Mephi, and over and over the circumstances just keep confirming what he already believes, which is that he's forsaken, and God is more interested in what's going on with David and is not really interested in Mephi. Mephi actually believes that on some level he feels like God meant to kill him instead of just cripple him, and he's just waiting to finish the job. And then we go to chapter 5, which is David, and it's very, very different tone, just so much peace in the confusion, and so much David's been through a lot of chaos recently, just dealing with all of the stuff that comes with taking charge after what Saul left behind. But David is now king of all Israel, and he's got a lot on his plate, and his first order of business is to defeat the Philistines, but he is really still hung up on that promise that he made to Jonathan to take care of his family, and he's still upset over the fact that I haven't kept that promise. It's been 7 years, and I mean, his son could be dead, and I don't know where to look for him, where to start. And yet the whole tone of the chapter is just David remembering, I have been through a lot, and I have learned through it all how to place all of my cares in God's hands, because otherwise David would lose his peace. When we get overwhelmed with everything that we think we need to do or want to do, all of the good desires even on our hearts and minds, but even with the culture, there's so much that is put on us, so much pressure, so much distraction. We're constantly being told, look at this, look at that, you should be involved in this. If you were a Christian, you'd do something about that. And all of them might be good things to consider, but we can get distracted the worst sometimes by things that are good or worthy, but they're just in the wrong place and in the wrong way. And we can lose our peace to the pull of man's opinions and expectations. And then nothing good actually comes of that. And at best, we get, just distracted and tied up with things that are not God's plan for us right this moment. It's important to not just be busy, but to be about the Father's business, as Jesus was, about the specific thing that God wants you to do right now. And so with David and Mephi's situation, it almost seems like David is not trying hard enough to find Mephi, and someone might say, well, look at all the trouble this kid is in. Can't you, you're the king and you knew Jonathan and loved him as a brother. Why can't you just, fix this? You should fix this for him. He shouldn't have to suffer anymore. And David believes that. He wants to just find him already. He wants to just fix everything for him. But he can't, with everything that's on his plate. There is a time and a season for everything. And he understands that Israel's in a very precarious situation right now. And he's going to have to pay attention to God's direction if he wants to stay steady himself and if he wants to keep the nation steady. And so David knows, as much as I want to do this right now, I have to place it back in God's hands, because that's where the peace is. That's where I will have my focus and my heart will be settled. And when I do move on this thing, it will be the right timing and God will bless my journey. And this is not something that Mephi appreciates right now, not a perspective that he appreciates right now, but it's something to think about, that while Mephi feels forsaken and like David doesn't care and God doesn't care, God is using Jonathan's last words to him to establish a connection of faith in his heart that's going to carry him through a lot and actually be an amazing testimony to God's faithfulness to him all along one day. And he's using that dream to establish a connection in his heart with David as well, just to show him, you and David, there's something there. There's something that's going to become a connection later on. So God is never wasting time. He's never not moving. And even though we get frustrated over everything that we want to see and everything we want to do, and God, like, why aren't you just fixing these circumstances? Why can't I just fix these circumstances? We can always bring it back and put it back in God's hands and trust that in him we have the perfect peace that passes all understanding, and that guards our hearts and minds. And from there we are better able to pursue his will in his timing, and blessing and redemption will follow.